And I'll kind of talk slowly as people are trickling in for the next couple of minutes. But hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar, Managing Escalated Patron Situations Face-to-Face, Your Questions Answered. My name is Ann Cassidy, and I'm a librarian at Minitex. Minitex is a program of the Minnesota Office of Higher Education and the University of Minnesota Libraries, and we provide library support services to all libraries, academic, public school, and special in Minnesota, and a little bit beyond that too in North Dakota, South Dakota. So today's webinar is part 2 in a de-escalation mini-series brought to you by CARLI, the Consortium of Academic and Research Libraries in Illinois, and Minitex. Part 1 was entitled De-escalation, a crucial tool in libraries for promoting intellectual freedom. And that focused on the ins and outs of dealings with challenges to library policies and materials. Today, we will dive deeper into strategies for handling challenging situations moment to moment as a frontline library worker. We will answer the questions that many of you have asked in preparation for today's session and work through the background and strategies that we need to improve our handling of escalated situations. We're honored to have Alfredo Hernandez Jr. as our guide today. Alfredo is the Safety and Security Program Manager for the University of Minnesota Libraries. He has over 8 years of experience working in university public safety, fulfilling frontline duties, as well as developing and instructing various safety trainings. He has certifications in conflict de-escalation, mental health crisis response, hostile intruder response, and emergency medical response. And he'll go into more of that in his presentation as well. We're really lucky to have him at the U of M, and we thank him for sharing his expertise with us today. We'll invite you to use the Q&A and chat, but Q&A may be more fun for if you have any questions as we go, because you can use the upvote feature in the Q&A if you see a question that someone else had that you really like. But we will hold those, we'll try and kind of hold them to the end since we did have people submit questions ahead of time. We'd like to address those in the presentation as we go. And then when we have time at the end, we'll get to the Q&A as time allows. I'll be monitoring all of that as we go, and let me know if you have any. You can direct chat to me if you have any other chat questions or anything like that. So that's it for me. Now I'll give it to you. Thanks.
All right. Hello, everyone. So again, we'll be hosting a presentation today titled Libraries Non-Escalation and De-Escalation. So this is going to be geared towards contact professionals managing face-to-face interactions. So again, just to go into a little bit of detail about who I am. So again, my name is Alfredo Hernandez Jr., he, him, his pronouns. I'm the Safety Security Program Manager here at the University of Minnesota Libraries. I have 9 years of public safety experience within university settings. I'm a certified instructor in non-escalation, de-escalation, and crisis management, as well as hostile intruder response, security and supervision and management, as well as emergency medical responder as well. And so the skills learned in this course are going to have applications when interacting with someone who's unknown to you or presents a likelihood of conflict, whether they're confronting you with anger, shouting, or ranting, whether they're experiencing inability to cope with the situation or exhibiting at-risk behaviors, and overall just demonstrating aggressive or violent behaviors. However, this presentation will not go into specifics about physical alternatives for addressing unsafe behaviors. Please review your institution's policy regarding staff physical safety, as well as your local and state law if you're interested in that. I also encourage you to look into different methods of self-defense available in your area. There's a variety of techniques available that can accommodate for a wide variety of body types and ability. So I just encourage you, if you're interested in more of the physical alternatives, to do some research into that. But for today, we'll be discussing creating a safe environment within our libraries. So of course, all of us hopefully should feel like libraries are a safe and welcoming space for all to foster an environment of exploring and of sharing a diverse set of knowledge and creativity. And so utilizing these techniques are going to be ways that we prevent situations from escalating, which can improve both the patron and also our own experience working in the libraries. Additionally, a lot of the skills and techniques you taught here are going to be also useful within throughout all areas of life, whether it's dealing with personal conflict in your own workplace. These are applicable beyond just dealing with outside patrons. And so whenever we're talking about managing conflict, things that we're going to be striving for is what we call pole safety. So this stands for physical, organizational, legal, and emotional safety. So in physical safety, we're talking about keeping ourselves and others safe, preventing physical injuries. Organizational, we're talking about improving both the employee and user experience, again, creating that welcoming and safe environment for all. For legal safety, we're protecting ourselves and our organization from policy violations, lawsuits, also making sure we're preserving, our kind of career goals and focus. With emotional safety, we're going to ensure that we're, maintaining our own mental and emotional well-being during these stressful incidents, making sure that we're taking care of ourselves, acknowledging times when maybe we need to step away from a situation or talk to somebody else or talk to close family members, friends about the situation to, again, get us safe. Additionally, in this training, we have a couple distinctions here between non-escalation and de-escalation. Again, non-escalation, that's for preventing a conflict from starting, versus de-escalation, reducing that conflict or crisis once it has started. So again, you think of de-escalation as, calming down a person who's already shouting, yelling. With non-escalation, we're managing the situation beforehand so that patron doesn't start shouting in the first place. And so the first key point that goes into non-escalation and de-escalation is going to be treating people with dignity and respect. And so everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of sex, gender, race, ethnicity, disability, or any other personal identifiers. And so, of course, it's very easy to do so, when people, when it's people that you get along with or agree with, but definitely much harder to do, when there are some, conflicting, beliefs, things like that, that may make it more difficult. And so one thing that we want to stress in this presentation is that you're not expected to personally respect everyone, but you should show respect to all, at least in professional settings. And again, even if it isn't genuine, showing respect often leads to better outcomes. So again, that's increased safety, less stress. So again, things that are going to help overall, even if, again, you don't have to feel that respect or dignity, you have to feel that respect yourself, but you always have to show it. And so a major part of treating people with dignity and respect is showing empathy. And so words are only a small part of that. So it's not just what you say and how you say it. So again, empathy is going to be built on these three principles highlighted in this empathy triad. So first, we're going to be acknowledging their perspective, knowing that no two people experience the world in the same way. There's an entire lifetime of experiences that have brought that person to that moment, same as you. Being mindful of also the different norms and kind of standard procedures that can vary greatly across different cultures, whether that's speaking volume, tone, level of eye contact, distance, conversational distance and personal space. All those are going to vary across different cultures. So being mindful of that as we engage in interactions. Second part of the empathy triad, seeking to understand. So that's being invested in trying to help the other person. So again, making sure that we're making that effort to get to know them, their issues, so that we can help address those. And then finally, anticipating their needs. So considering whether they might be feeling, what they might be feeling or thinking in those circumstances, and kind of address the others things that may arise. Again, to show that you're invested in solving that issue and helping them in that situation. Another part of demonstrating empathy is going to be acknowledging the potential for others' experience with trauma. And so conflict can stem from sources outside of that single interaction, and they may be carrying things that have, put them in a bad mood or, kind of immediately are going to set them off long before you even begin talking with this person. And so it's also important to note that there are various sources of trauma that can influence that person's thoughts or behaviors. So we talk about long-term trauma, whether that's prolonged exposure to traumatic experiences, historical, generational, or institutional trauma, trauma related to mental health or disability. There's also short-term trauma. So again, those are just acute stressors, whether that's relationship difficulties, acute health concerns, work or financial problems. And finally, there's also trauma and stress that is going to be state dependent. So and that's affected by either the intake or withdrawal from various drugs or alcohol. And so again, important to note that a history of trauma can also lead, making the person more vulnerable for re-traumatization. And so while we should be aware of these sources of trauma to help inform how we can help the person, we shouldn't use these as a means to judge them or distribute bias or prejudice against them. So the thing that I really want to stress is that we should be trying to focus on the issue at hand, not that person's perceived status or history. Ask yourself, what specifically about their behavior that's concerning to you. Ask, if someone else was doing the same thing, would I still be concerned or would I be as concerned? And keeping that in mind as we move forward and kind of decide how we want to approach a situation. So our next key point is going to be remaining alert and decisive. So when I say being alert and decisive, that means being mindful to changes in your immediate environment, making sure to pay attention when someone either enters or leaves an area, they start engaging in unusual activity, making sure we're regularly scanning our environment, making sure that we're aware of what's going on around us. Additionally, we want to be familiar with all the entry and exit points in our typical work areas. I generally recommend, you ask yourself as you're going through your day, as you change rooms, ask yourself, if there's an emergency in this room right now, how do I escape? What would I do in this situation? Anything that you can do to help you kind of get more grounded and more familiar in the spaces that you're in. Alerting others if necessary. So again, if there's an emergency or concern, whether you're able to talk to the person that's standing next to you or able to send them a message electronically, just let other people know that, hey, something's up, whether or not it's rises to the event of an emergency or not. Just make sure that people are aware that something is going on. Next, we're going to be trusting our own instincts. So if you feel that something's off, trust that. If you feel like you're unsafe in a scenario, do what you need to do to get out of there. Don't just stay in a situation because others don't want to leave or others don't perceive that threat. Again, that is completely up to them. But trust your own instincts to make sure that you remain safe in that situation. And finally, we're going to be mindful of our distance and proxemics between people, which I'll go into a little more detail later. But again, just being mindful of the whole situation as we before we even begin to interact. And so another part of being alert is recognizing that there are various levels of awareness. And so we have this color-coded chart here that goes from white, yellow, orange, red, and black. So our first color code is going to be condition white, which is unaware. So this describes a situation where when you're not really intaking any sort of stimuli from your environment, you can't react to what's going on around you. So some examples you can think, if someone's asleep or if they're unconscious, again, they're just in that situation, unable to really perceive what's happening around them and unable to react to that. Our next step is to be condition yellow, relaxed but alert. So again, that kind of describes that at least a basic level of awareness and ability to respond. So you think usually when you're at home or in a usual workspace, again, you're familiar with the area, kind of what to expect and what not to expect, but generally you're just going about your business as usual, followed by condition orange, which is ready to act. So again, that's kind of that heightened state of awareness where something might happen and you may need to act. So some examples could be, if you're driving during rush hour traffic, you may have to brake, change lanes, anything that you need to do, or think of it as like a severe weather watch. So again, something might happen, but again, it's not guaranteed that it will. Our next state of awareness is going to be red, our action state. So again, this is when we're actively taking steps to avoid or respond to a situation. So again, for example, if you're braking or when you're actually braking or switching lanes in traffic, or again, once we get that severe weather warning, when we're taking shelter, moving to more safe spaces. Last condition of awareness is going to be our code black, which is blind panic. So again, this is, when you're completely unaware of your actions, you're just kind of trusting your basic instincts to take over at that point. So again, you're not really thinking through what you're doing, but you're just, acting at that heat of the moment and just trying to, again, do your best to escape that situation. And so the thing that we want to stress in this training is that we want to keep ourselves within that yellow to red range. So again, that we're aware of our situation and ready to act, but again, that we're not, blindly reacting to things or completely unaware of our surroundings. And so within those kind of levels of awareness, we can be on the lookout for indicators of possible threats. So those are going to be examining our gateway behaviors and our risk and threat indicators. So by gateway behaviors, this is talking about, general trend of behavior that we see that lead up to escalated interactions of violence. So our first step is going to be antisocial behavior. And that's generally, being rude, ignoring the other person, talking over them, interrupting, and things that are generally considered, antisocial that, again, would seem to indicate, potential escalation after that. The next step, step 2, is going to be our veiled threats. So again, these are kind of indirect indications of violence. For example, someone says, see what happens, or let's take this outside. Again, there's that slight indication of violence without being specific about what it could be. So then at our next step with direct threats, so that's when they get specific, they say, I'm going to punch you in the face, I'll knock your lights out, things like that, that indicate, they have thought this through, they are, willing to engage in violence and are specific about it. And then finally, our last step is violence. So again, it's important to note that, they don't always follow this general trend, but to be aware of how, each step can escalate to the next. And so this training is designed to help you identify each type and how to respond appropriately, knowing when you can de-escalate a situation versus when the situation has gone beyond what is expected in your role. And in general, library staff hopefully should not be expected to personally handle anything beyond, the antisocial behavior. But again, important to note just the different levels and indicators that could lead to potential violence. So with that, we can move on to our threat indicators. So again, these are situations where communications may have broken down, or you may have a possible safety violation based on the following factors. So we have proxemics. So again, that's talking about positioning, distance. When you're maybe too close to somebody, you're putting yourself in danger, they're putting themselves in danger. Verbally, so again, that's just describing what is said in that conversation. Paraverbal, how it's said, so whether it's tone, sarcasm, anything like that. And then our nonverbals, again, we're just going to focus on our appearance and behavior in that situation. And so kind of a way to kind of demonstrate some of these gateway behaviors, the indicators. I'll be showing a quick video here. So the video does show a physical assault, someone pushing someone, the other person falling over, in explicit language. And so again, if that's something that you may not be comfortable with, feel free to mute very quickly. But if you are, feel free to ask yourself, these following questions as the video plays. Ask yourself what happened in this situation and what has escalated or what continues the conflict. Let's see, hopefully we should be able to get sound through.
You are, and don't ever say that to me, right? Don't ever fucking do that to me. Don't fucking come up to me and do that. In my fucking face, because I'll fucking give it up.
So yeah, some immediate things that you can kind of see in that video. Again, was a lot of the, physical distance in terms of the people being very close contact. There's no space between the two people. They're kind of both coming towards each other, chests out, both really trying to intimidate, dominate the other person. Additionally, other behaviors, the individual on the right waving their finger in the face of the other person, again, all different ways that they're violating each other's personal space, making each other feel threatened and wanting to be the aggressor in that situation. Additionally, you may have also noted that one of the individuals on the left, he starts to walk away in the middle of that conversation, yet that person on the right closes that distance again and continues that escalation. Additionally, there's also the consideration of it happening in a public space. There's an audience around them. There may be, influences on, wanting to save face, not wanting to appear disrespected in that situation. So again, all of those factors kind of come in place that can describe how an escalation either escalates or continues to escalate, even when it could have ended much sooner. And so our next key point we're going to be talking about is responding, not reacting. So when we're reacting, that means we're acting on impulse without much thought, acting upon our gut instincts. versus responding is going to be generally our more thought out practice action that focused on resolving the issue at hand. And so, of course, it's not always bad to immediately react in a situation, especially when your safety is at risk. However, in most professional settings, you'll want to have some prepared way to respond to various issues. So you want to focus on making sure that we're responding. And so again, even in those situations, it doesn't have to be an exact script, allows for some flexibility, because not every situation is going to go the same way, but you should have an idea of what the ultimate goal to solve that issue is whenever you're interacting with somebody. So it's important to note too that when we're in the heat of the moment, sometimes something that we say reactively could cause that situation to escalate, whether we mean it to or not. And so we want to make sure we're doing our responding, our practice responses that help demonstrate our skills and to make sure that we're responding appropriately. And so some examples of responding versus reacting language are highlighted in these indignity versus dignity phrases. And so often, we might be speaking reactively, and so that's when these dignity phrases come in. However, here are a couple examples of ways that you can reframe that kind of conversation into ways that's going to be more proactive. So instead of telling the person to calm down, ask them, what's the issue? Can I help you with something? Instead of telling them to come here, say, excuse me, may I talk to you? Or again, in situations where, I need you to do this, you can instead use, would it be possible for you to? So again, these are all different ways that you can kind of reframe that kind of same concept in a way that's going to be more, respectful, acknowledging of that other person's autonomy. However, it's also important to note that even if we use these dignity phrases, they might not always work. And, even if you use the right language, very often it depends on how you say it. Again, if they can sense any sense of, sarcasm or, annoyance in your voice when you're using these dignity phrases, sometimes they're still not going to be enough. So again, it's a matter of practicing that and making sure everything's in alignment when you're trying to, use these different dignity phrases. And so another part of making sure that, we're being aware of the entire situation is being aware of conflict triggers. So these are going to be behaviors or comments that get under your skin, immediately put you in a bad mood or give you a bad opinion of someone. And so it's important to be mindful of our own and mindful of others' conflict triggers as well. So again, these can, manifest in various different ways, whether it's, again, distancing between people, whether it's, nonverbals, verbals, or paraverbals. And so there are various sources of conflict triggers. There's some universal ones like indignity, fear, stress, and vulnerability, all things that kind of, put us on edge or kind of make us approach a situation in an escalated level already. Other ones include more personal ones, such as name calling, eye rolling, sarcasm, small little things here and there that you or another person might do that could escalate the situation unintentionally. And so with that, I want to do a quick little poll here, if I can get help from Anne. And so I just have a couple examples here of some conflict triggers. And so hopefully you can take some time, see which one of these would be a conflict trigger for you. So we have A, constantly interrupting, talking over you. B, other person saying, my taxes, my tuition, pay your salary. C, are you sure you know what you're doing? D, the other employee let me do this. Or E, more than one or all of the above. So again, these are only a couple examples. I know me personally, I think one of mine is typically, when someone tells me, I pay so much in tuition and this is how you treat me. To me, that just, speaks a lot to privilege and, kind of gets me, immediately have a bad perception of that person. But again, I have to try to be mindful of that to make sure that, not letting that affect my personal approach to that. And so, yeah, it seems like we can probably wrap up in the next few seconds here.
There's still a little bit more voting going on.
All right, maybe we give folks another 10 seconds or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so again, all being mindful of, different ways that, things can kind of pop up, whether, it's intentional or not. Just the little things that, might really just set you off. And so I see, seems like for the most part, a lot of these are kind of, at least more than one of these are hitting for a lot of people, followed by constantly interrupting or talking over the other person. So again, yeah, get all these different ways that, either small comments or gestures can really affect how you perceive that person and, kind of throw you off your, professional skills and balance. And so all good things to keep in mind. And so as a part of, being aware of our conflict triggers and making sure that we're keeping our emotional equilibrium. So in keeping that balance between an emotional and intellectual response so that, we're not reacting blindly based on emotion, yet we're still being warm and comforting and not being like cold. And so ways that we can do this is building trigger guards. So and that involves, defining, naming, and owning your conflict triggers, keeping your ego in check. You can feel certain, emotions when those happen, but being sure not to show it. Consider that, your behavior is likely being watched whenever you're interacting with another person, especially in public. Use that as an opportunity to show off your professionalism and skills. Making sure next that we're practicing our empathy. So again, put yourself in their shoes. Think about again, they might have already been having a bad day, and they might have already had this, and the other thing happen to them. So let me try to help find ways to make their day a little bit better. And again, like I said, define, name, and own your own conflict triggers. So again, make sure you recognize the emotion that you're feeling. Ask yourself, why am I feeling that, or is that really a proper response to how I should react to that. And again, you're welcome, you're not a bad person for feeling that way, but again, knowing that, and at least in professional settings here, you should try to keep that in check as much as you can. And then finally, consider who you represent, your family, coworkers, friends, or community. How would they react or feel if, they saw this interaction happening? Would your response to that situation make them proud? So again, think of different ways that you can, make sure that you're not making yourself and others look unprofessional, but again, keep that in a way so that you can be proud of the work that you're doing in that moment. So our next step is going to be mentally preparing ourselves. So I have another quick video here. It's actually from Grey's Anatomy. So I'll give you a quick minute to watch this. Sorry.
Okay, I have everything set up. You will have all of your films, your favorite scrub nurse. What is happening?
I'm being a superhero.
Okay.
There's a scientific study that shows that if you stand like this in superhero pose for just 5 minutes before a job interview or a big presentation or a really hard task, you will not only feel more confident, you will perform measurably better.
Seriously?
Seriously. You feel it?
We're superheroes.
We are superheroes.
All right, so again, just like to share that clip because again, it's a great example of different ways that you can kind of prepare yourself before you even enter that situation. So again, parts of mentally preparing ourselves before conflict, acknowledging the situation that you're going into. Again, tell yourself, this is going to be a conflict situation. I might be dealing with someone who's already upset. Making sure, tell yourself, I know what's going to happen and I'm prepared to do so. So again, just like you saw in the video, adopt a confident posture, shoulders back, over your hips, feet flat on the floor, shoulder width apart. And give yourself both that kind of mental and physical ability to kind of, be present in that situation so that you are confident in yourself and your abilities. Take a deep breath in, hold that breath, and then deep breath out. Kind of center yourself in the situation. Again, get yourself physically prepared, put on the appropriate demeanor in that situation. Again, it's not always going to be appropriate to enter every situation with a bright, shining smile and say, sometimes, you need to adopt a more, either solemn face, or make sure that, you're just entering that situation with an emotional kind of viewpoint that's going to be appropriate. And then next, using positive self-talk, saying, I've got this, I'm here to help people. Anything that kind of helps you kind of get in that mindset of, confidence and that you're able to handle the situation. And then finally, once all of that is done, then you step into the scenario, engage in that person. And so other ways that we make sure that we're mentally preparing ourselves and making sure we're having our communication in alignment with each other. So again, our paraverbals, how we say something, our nonverbals, our facial expression, body movements, and verbals, making sure that those are going to be all in alignment depending on the situation. So our next step is going to be distance and proxemics. So again, like I kind of discussed previously, proxemics kind of discusses distance between other people. And so again, it's a balance of distance, positioning, and hand placement. And so of course, distance is going to affect different comfort levels of people interacting. So again, there are going to be 3 points in which you should evaluate risk and whether you are approaching them or they are approaching you. So at 10 feet, we're going to be evaluating or exiting the situation. So at evaluating, we're going to be doing our risk assessment, visually, looking around ourselves, identify escape routes, areas of cover, and then doing our threat assessment as well. Actually look at the person that's approaching you, identify, kind of what emotional state, physical, mental state that they're in at that moment, and determine if there's a potential level of regression. Then if you, determine that, and, you decide it's unsafe to even engage with the person, exit that situation, go somewhere safe, get help before that situation even starts. And so let's say, it is safe to, communicate. So then we move into our 5-foot distance. So again, we start the conversation, begin the verbal interaction, whatever it is that you need to discuss in that moment, or that person wants to discuss it with you. And then again, we're also continuing to evaluate whether we need to evade that situation. So again, if you notice something of concern, or they say something, do something when you're in that closer distance, again, break off contact, get safe, get help. And finally, within our 2 feet operation, so again, we're actively engaging with the situation or the individual. So again, whether we're handing books to them, we're checking IDs, anything like that. That's when we're physically engaging with the person. And then again, keeping in mind our escape routes if necessary. Again, utilize any sort of self-defense, anything that you need to utilize in that situation to get out if it is necessary. And so different ways that we can apply these is using our one-hand stop sign. So this is useful when someone casually approaches you, however, they start closing in to an uncomfortable distance. So you can do this by, extending one arm towards the person, palm out, kind of making your own personal stop sign. Bring the other arm back up to your chest. So then it's ready to respond if necessary, if they don't decide to stop. Our next is going to be our 2-hand stop sign with reverse yelling. So this is going to be useful when someone's approaching with urgency or anger. Again, we're also utilizing our reverse yelling. So that is, speaking in a softer, lower tone to kind of help them get back to a conversational level. So if they're approaching you, shouting, yelling, keep your voice low. So again, they have to bring themselves down to make sure that they can hear you. And so again, kind of demonstrating the behavior that you want to see from them, not, escalating your own voice to match theirs, bring them down to match yours. So again, just put, in terms of positioning, we're just putting both palms face out. So again, make sure that we're keeping that safe distance between us and the other person. Our next way to apply proxemics is going to be through our guiding hands. So this is, if you want to guide someone to an area that you want them to go, while you're still keeping your arms and hands in a prepared position. So, in the direction that you want them to go, extend your arm straight out. And again, bringing that other arm up to your chest. So then if you do need to react in any sort of way, that hand is ready to respond. Our next is going to be our thinker stance. So again, this is used during like prolonged conversations with an individual, whether or not they're rambling or they just have a long story that they need to explain. It demonstrates your attentiveness while also keeping your hands at a level to protect yourself if necessary. So again, you bring one hand to your chin, you support your elbow with your other hand. It's important to note in this kind of stance, you should support your elbow with your other hand. You shouldn't try to pin your elbow or pin your hand down. So again, keeping both hands available and free to react if necessary. And finally, we have our prepared sitting position. So again, if you're in a seated position, where there's a potential for the scenario to escalate, you can sit at one of the front corners of that chair, instead of sitting forward back, bring yourself forward on the chair. Keep one foot on the side of the chair and the other foot at the center. So again, this positioning makes it easier to get up and out of the chair to respond to the situation, and also makes it less likely to trip over the chair if you do need to leave. And so our next key point is going to be our universal greeting. So this is going to be our professional calling card. And so with every interaction, we should be sharing who we are and creating a precedence of what behavior should be. And so whenever we're approaching someone from a position of authority or instruction, people will often consider 4 questions. Who are you? Where do you get your authority? What do you want? And why should I care? And so our universal greeting should be sure to answer all 4 of those. It also makes sure that we're sparking cooperation and demonstrates that you respect the other person and their autonomy. It builds that foundation for you to empathetically address that person and their situation. And so the aspects of our universal greeting are going to be 1, our appropriate greeting. So again, whether that's hello, good evening, good morning, anything that's going to initiate that contact right away, just a friendly greeting instead of jumping immediately into the conflict. Then we follow that up with our name and affiliation. So again, this provides the reference to the person, gives them an idea of, again, it's another person that's interacting with them, kind of, again, shares the reason why you're there, or shares, why you're the person that's approaching them. And then our next step, number 3, is going to be providing a reason for contact. So again, this is going to fill in the blanks for them, let them know, why is this person coming up to me? Why do I need to pay attention to them? And then finally, we ask a relevant question at the end of our universal greeting. So again, this initiates a dialogue, keeps the conversation open-ended, but still focusing on the issue at hand. So whether that can be, yeah, I noticed, there's some loud noise over here, are you familiar with that? Or are you familiar with their policy about noise level? Something that's going to, again, acknowledge the situation, but again, keep it open and keeping that dialogue going. And so again, before we, even initiate that universal greeting, we're still making sure we're keeping those other methods in mind, being alert and decisive, responding, not reacting. Again, are mentally preparing ourselves, and again, considering our distance. Also important to note, universal greetings, sometimes, many of the common phrases and ways that we use to address others can be conflict triggers themselves. Saying good morning or good evening when someone is, decidedly having a very bad day, that can immediately start them off on the wrong foot. Or additionally, sometimes we like to use, pronouns, gendered titles when referring to people, sir, miss, ma'am. So again, these are, potentials for misgendering. And so if you're ever corrected by someone about their pronouns, just make sure, respect that, acknowledge it, apologize, and again, move forward with the conversation appropriately. So after that, we make sure to utilize beyond active listening, which are key point 7. And so while it's important to also hear and listen to what is being said, there's a wide breadth of information that can be communicated beyond just, verbally. And so beyond active listening is going to help us, learn about the needs and wants of the other person. It can also signal other factors at play when someone is in conflict or crisis. And so by using all your senses, some examples here, we're talking about sight. We look at the person's facial expression, pay attention to where they're looking, what their body language is. Additionally, some medical conditions or disabilities are visible. And so they're, can point to specific stressors that the person might be dealing with. Same thing for the person's clothing. And again, while we shouldn't be judging people based on that, again, it helps let us know ways that we can help, address their issues, address the potential conflict at hand. Additionally, other things regarding clothing, if it's unusual clothing based on, the current weather, multiple long layers when it's hot, that could be indicators, that they're either trying to, or might be concealing something, any potential dangers for that. And even, in colder months when there's minimal clothing, again, could be, signs of stressors of, their unhoused status, or again, altered states of, chemical or physical health. Again, all of those things that could be helpful to know before you enter that situation. Typically, there's also obviously hearing. So again, our verbals, so what's said and what and how it's said. Other senses include smell. So again, these can be, indicators of altered mental or chemical states, whether we're talking about alcohol, marijuana, anything that lets us know, okay, this person may respond differently than they usually might, depending on the situation. Additionally, again, extensive body odor, again, could be another sign of a stressor, dealing with, status of being unhoused, anything like that, that could again be influencing that behavior. And then finally, we have touch. So again, hopefully you shouldn't have to use this very often. Of course, again, it's going to be depending on your organization's expectations of physical intervening. However, there are rare occasions where maybe you're helping someone during a medical incident, helping someone get up or helping them walk to a nearby chair. And if you feel, they're shaking a lot, they're cold, clammy appendages, could be signs of physical or could be signs of medical distress. Then all important things to know if you do need to, call an ambulance, request assistance that way. And of course, there is one sense missing of taste, which hopefully you should never have to utilize in a library in your day-to-day professional activities. I think if you are utilizing taste in a situation, something else has gone horribly wrong. So hopefully you never have to worry about that. But again, with beyond active listening, so we're making sure that we're doing these different things to help make deeper communication possible with the other person. And again, demonstrating that we're listening and that we're seeking to understand the other person. So we start off by clarifying, actually asking open-ended questions, saying, what did you mean by that? Or again, what is the issue that's happening right now? We also paraphrase. So you restate, what they said in your own words, demonstrate that understanding that you're listening. You understand what's going on, you understand what they're experiencing. Reflecting, describing their feelings as you see them. So, hey, I see that you're upset, or I see that, you're really scared right now. So again, different ways that kind of let them know that you're paying attention to that situation. Affirming them, acknowledging their situation. Say, yeah, if that was happening to me, I'd feel the same way. Anything, again, that's going to kind of help build that kind of rapport between you and the other person. Subtly mirroring them, matching body language, tone. Again, as long as it's not escalated tone. Advocating for them, so reiterate what the issue is and how you can help them in that situation. And then finally summarize, so again, based on your understanding of the situation, confirm that they have the same understanding and that they understand the next steps you're going to be taking with them. And so next we move into key point 8, which is going to be our de-escalation through persuasion. So again, we use this to resolve disagreements, misunderstandings, or encourage a correction of behavior. So ways that we do this is going through the persuasion sequence. So again, our goal is to achieve cooperation while avoiding escalation. So it works best when you're respectful, provide solid reasoning, and appeal to their emotions. So the first way that we can do that is explain why and confirm understanding. So again, you inform them about the rule, policy, or law, or whatever you're trying to enforce in that situation. Describe the rationale behind it. So say, we do this to preserve library materials. We do this for, patron safety. and then confirm that they understand what you just told them. Next, step 2 is going to be offering options and letting them choose. So again, giving them that autonomy to decide how that interaction is going to go next, and you respond appropriately. So we start by presenting the positive option, then present the less positive option, but then at the end, put that final emphasis back on the positive option. So for example, we can say, someone wants to speak to a manager about, about fines. So we say, the first positive option is, yeah, I'll take down your information and someone will get back to you as soon as they can. Or, if you keep yelling, or if you keep, at this escalated level, I'm going to have to, call, security, police, or whoever who can come talk to you about this. And then again, putting that final emphasis, or again, you can go about your day just fine. You just got to give me your information and we'll get back to you. So again, giving them that option to decide how that situation is going to go and responding appropriately. And then finally, our third step, giving that option to reconsider. So again, if they still want to pursue that, less positive option, you'll say, is there anything I can say and get you to, again, give me your contact details and we'll get back to you. So again, giving them kind of autonomy to decide. So again, that's going to be the important part whenever we're doing that persuasion sequence. Our next key point is going to be redirection. So again, this is going to be used to de-escalate resistance, such as a verbal confrontation involving anger, shouting, or ranting. This can also include, insults, name calling. Such behavior is usually just a function of, people being escalated, reacting from emotions. So again, our goal is to prevent that verbal confrontation from escalating further, while still, addressing the issue that was made with that comment. And so again, we want to make sure that we're shifting that person back to a lower, calmer level than when they started. So parts of redirection is making sure that, we're not taking the confrontational personally, not, meeting them at their level, stooping down to their level in terms of, engaging in insults or trash talk. Again, you can feel upset or angry, but, don't act on that, maintain your professionalism. And, if there's a situation where you can't do so, leave the situation, get some help, or get someone else to kind of help you deal with that situation. And so again, ways that we can redirect, it's going to be acknowledging the comment, however, still getting back to that issue. So again, this is ways, or we can use this to, address rude comments, but shift the focus back onto the problem. Say, I can see how that's frustrating and I would like to help with this. Again, trying to make sure we're not taking comments personally. And again, if you can't respond professionally, leave the situation. And if you have to leave, make sure you let them know, okay, I can't help you right now, but I'm going to go get someone who can. Our next redirection step is going to be diverting attention. So anything that you can do, just create a pause to allow both parties time to kind of readjust, reflect on the situation. Whether that's saying, oh, I forgot something in the back, could you give me a minute? Or, hey, I think I got to respond to this email. Anything that's going to, again, buy you and the other person some time to really think about that situation, so that you can continue to handle it professionally. And then finally, making sure we're using I statements. So again, this is going to be reducing, any assignment of negative attributes to others, and again, still keeping that focused on the problem. So you can say, I'm concerned this is causing a distraction versus you're causing a disruption. And see how that, second statement is much more accusatory, assigning them, a negative attribute. So again, we want to make sure that we're focusing on, our perception of that of that situation in that moment. And so for some examples, someone makes the comment, oh, what took you so long? You're taking a nap back there. You can respond, thank you for your patience. I'm here now. I'm hoping you'll allow me to help. Or additionally, if someone, flips you off, uses the middle finger, hey, I see you're upset. Did you have a question? Please tell me how I can help. So again, acknowledging that, again, what they did, wasn't, kind, or, it was rude, disrespectful. But again, not letting that affect how we maintain our professionalism and still focus on the issue at hand. And so our next key point 10 is going to be crisis management. And so we use this to make sure that we stay safe and promote recovery with someone who is experiencing an inability to cope with the situation and exhibiting at-risk behaviors. So again, that can include, threatening physical harm to themselves or others, being excessively fearful or irrational to agree that it's creating an unsafe condition. So again, our primary goals in these situations are going to make sure that we're staying safe and also improving the safety of others around us. And then our second goal is going to be recovery. So again, helping that person who's experiencing that crisis return to a safe place where they can properly respond to and cope with the situation. And so ways that we can manage people in crisis is going to be through modeling calmness. So again, demonstrating that behavior that you want to see from them. Speak softly. Underreact to their, exaggerated behaviors. Keep yourself at, kind of the same level as them to make sure, again, you're demonstrating that you're calm and that you want them to also be calm without, directly telling them. Our next step is going to be reducing stimulation, minimizing nearby distractions. Don't crowd the person. Approach again slowly. Keep your hands in sight. Again, softening that tone and volume of your voice. Separating and supporting them. So move them to a private area if it's safe to do so, or if it's not, try to dismiss onlookers, saying, hey, we're handling the situation here. Mind going about your business. And then we're also going to be adapting our communication. So assign one person to be speaker to the person. Don't have multiple people asking different questions. Have one person be the assigned speaker with the person. Have them use short sentences and asking one question at a time. Ask, hey, are you here with somebody? Wait for the response. Do you know where they are? Wait for a response. Again, it's kind of those quick, shorter questions, so they don't feel overwhelmed in that situation when they're already, struggling to cope with all the other stimuli they're experiencing. And then finally, again, meeting unmet needs. It's going to offer, water, offer a bathroom, a phone call if they have to call somebody. Again, making sure that you're addressing any unmet needs that extend just beyond the immediate situation. And so other ways that we can approach people in crisis, try to get their attention, noting any barriers, ask them to focus on the conversation and again, reduce those distracting stimuli. Check their perception of reality by asking open-ended questions, ask them, their name, ask, do they know where they are, what time or date it is, ask if they're seeing or hearing anything distracting, and following that up with explaining your own perception of reality. So again, it's not that we're denying it, we're just stating our own, saying, I'm sorry, I don't hear anyone else talking, or, I don't see that. But it's important to note, you never should play into a person's delusions or hallucinations. So that's always going to escalate that situation further. It's never going to be healthy for you or the other person involved. Then next, again, we're making sure that we're establishing that rapport and safety. So again, using your name, repeating theirs, repeating that you're there to help, different ways to make sure that they feel comfortable talking to you and that they feel safe in that situation. And then finally, moving towards resolution, asking, what's going to make you feel safe right now? Is there someone I should call? And again, summarizing the situation afterward, we're moving over here to, make a phone call or call, whoever you need to get you the assistance that you need. And so our next step is going to be, our key point is going to be when de-escalation isn't possible. So we have to be aware that, even despite our best efforts, attempts at resolution or de-escalation may fail or may be inappropriate in that moment. And so we have to make sure we know what to do when that does happen. So when we're determining our safety, we have to, consistently evaluate when we're going through all the other key points, make sure that we're keeping ourselves safe throughout the entire situation. And again, there's no shame in acknowledging that a situation is beyond your training or duties. And so again, these are going to be the ways that we can do that. So again, demonstrating alarm. So again, calling for additional assistance if it's needed, and whether that's your coworkers, supervisor, a local public safety, a police department, whatever is going to be appropriate in that situation. Again, doing that continuous evaluation, determining levels of safety, deciding whether you should even enter the situation to begin with, or whether you should stay back and monitor, disengaging the situation, exiting the situation, saying, I forgot something in the back, or I need to go talk to my supervisor, anything that you need to do to get out of that situation. Utilizing personal protection methods if necessary. Again, encourage you to look into, local, state, law, organizational policies determine that. And then finally, utilizing a run, hide, fight model in active threat scenarios, and that's someone, who's entered your space looking to do harm. So then the basics of that going to be run. So again, your top priority should always be just escaping that situation, getting yourself and others to safety. If that's not possible, hiding, barricading yourself in a safe location until the danger is past, or as a last resort, fighting. So if all else has failed, then you need to make sure that you stay safe in that situation, engaging with the other individual to make sure that you're escaping that situation unharmed and safe. So another part of this too is going to be making sure that we're monitoring our own well-being during these situations. So again, recognize when you and others are not able to effectively de-escalate a situation. Acknowledge that no one's going to be perfect. Can't guarantee that we'll always handle conflict the best way. So again, making sure that we're being mindful of how we're dealing with the situation and whether we're in a place to continue this de-escalation. Also important to note that we should be intervening when others are not effectively de-escalating the situation. So we can do this either verbally or through positioning. So verbally, you can ask them, hey, can you just go notify your supervisor about this, or I can take this from here. Anything that again is kind of create that separation between them and the other person. Again, with positioning, again, if it's safe to do so. Again, make sure that there's enough space between the two, separate them for the time being, make sure that both have time and space to cool down. Now, final step, key point 12, is our effective closure. So again, our goals during this are going to be trying to achieve the best possible outcome while establishing a positive foundation for future interactions. And so once we've exhausted all reasonable attempts to resolve or de-escalate the situation, we have to make sure that again, that we were able to respond appropriately. I'll make sure that we're including the interaction with a closure statement. Include something you learned about the person during the interaction. If the situation did not end positively, express hope for a better outcome next time. And again, summarizing that interaction, confirm understanding that they know what happened and what you're going to be doing from there. Additionally, after the conflict, make sure that you're reflecting on that interaction. Again, being mindful of your own well-being. Make sure you check in with friends, family, close ones, anyone that you may need to talk to about the situation. Look at what went well, what didn't go well. Make sure that you acknowledge that afterward. And finally, making sure you document that interaction. So again, if that person comes back and says, this employee did such and such or said such and such, having some sort of physical documented record is going to help. If that comes up, and again, kind of helps you and your organization examine and kind of document what's going on and what they need to address in that situation. And so as we begin to close up here, a final note that I have is just practice, practice, practice. And so these skills, don't always come naturally. They are going to require effort and practice before you consistently utilize them in conflict scenarios. Try to run through scenarios in your head with, friends or family. Practice, if this happens, then I will do or say this type of situations. And again, noting even with enough practice, there may be situations where you make a mistake, and that's perfectly fine. The important thing is to recognize, again, what went wrong and why, and to improve for the next time. So again, as I see we're kind of reaching time here, I'll address some of the questions that came up during the Q&A. And I can also see that there might be some comments and Q&A questions from the webinar now, which I can send in the summary to Anne afterwards, and we can share that out after. But yeah, I'll try to run through these real quickly with our pre-submitted questions. Again, some common themes that I saw in the pre-submitted questions were de-escalating when you're the only employee present. So ideally, of course, there should always be at least 2 employees working at all times. However, we know that there are different factors that could limit that from happening. Again, if employees do have to work alone, there are several things you can do to minimize risks. Obviously, if you're the employee, be more cautious when deciding to engage in a risky interaction. Or on that side of caution, don't engage if it's unsafe to do so. And don't put yourself in that situation when you feel like you can't easily escape from it. Your safety is always going to be the #1 priority. Books, computers, any other library materials are replaceable. You aren't. And so part of that too is also ensuring that we have multiple avenues of communication. Whether that's through internet, phone, panic alarms, regular check-ins, whatever you can do within your organization to address those. And then also making sure that we're trying to design physical spaces so staff have quick, easy escape routes or places to barricade if necessary. So again, I see we're running out of time, so I think I will just go ahead and share the rest of these answers I had to these questions and look at the Q&A from the webinar today. I'll share that with Anne, and then we can get that shared out with all of you. So again, I wanted to thank you, and yeah, pass it back to Anne.
That's great. Thank you so much. Do you mind? There's just a couple of questions for people who are here right now. Do you mind if we just take a couple?
Of course.
Okay. Is there anything? Okay, I'll go back to the original one. This was from early on, so maybe this was answered. But does direct violence have to be person to person, or can it also occur when someone is destructive toward library materials or furniture, like knocking over a chair, throwing books across the floor in anger, etc.?
So yeah, going back to that idea of gateway behaviors with violence being that last step. Yeah, it certainly can, doesn't have to be directed person to person. Again, they it could very well, like you said, be destructive of property. So again, those are going to be other kind of situations where maybe we decide, that's an unsafe situation. I don't even want to engage. I want to stay back, monitor, call, police, security, whoever's available to come help with that.
Thank you. Is there anything you can do if you overhear any concerning things from patrons while in the library on phone or computer mentioning guns, something like that, etc.?
So I think that's going to be tough, and I think it depends on, again, the situation that you're in or that they're describing. If it's an instance of someone indicating that they might have a gun on them while they're in the library, again, that's obviously going to be a concern, and that's also going to be based on your organizational policies and your local and state law. So I would recommend kind of reviewing that and investigating as you feel safe to do so. But if you don't, again, initiating that kind of public safety response in terms of calling security if you have it, or calling 911, saying, hey, I'm concerned that someone might have a weapon in this building when they're not supposed to.
Thank you. Okay. One more. Can you address situations when a third individual randomly gets involved offering to help, but escalating the situation by doing so?
So again, I guess that kind of comes into that is kind of addressed through the topic of reducing stimuli for the conflict. And so if it's possible, say, hey, I appreciate the help, but I'm kind of dealing with this situation now. I'll be happy to help, listen to you afterwards, but I really want to, make sure this person's being, addressed and that we're addressing their issues. Or again, if you, have someone working with you, say, hey, you can go talk to the other person working there, and they'll listen and kind of help you, and can figure out the situation from there. So then trying to minimize any unnecessary interaction from people that maybe don't have the same type of kind of training or kind of approach to de-escalation that might inadvertently make things worse.
Thank you. And then we have a very big question. I don't know, maybe if you can just close on this one. What's the most personally stressful situation you've ever handled in the library, and how did you deal with it?
So I think specifically within the library, I know within the past year, we had an individual who was, just sitting in the library watching, some sort of video on their phone, but it was very clear that, they maybe weren't in a good mental state. It seemed like there might have been some mental health concerns at play in terms of, it seemed like the individual was trying to communicate with the recorded video that they were watching. They were making some pretty awful comments about people around them. And so making sure, try to address that person's concerns while also not, creating an unsafe environment for people around them. So that really just involved a very long conversation I had to have with that person in terms of, trying to make sure they're focusing on the conversation that he and I were having. Because again, he would kind of go off on these long tangents about, government spying on him and things like that, weren't really related to the issues at hand. And so I just, had to have a long conversation with him about, understand that, know you feel that way. However, I just got to be sure that other people can use the library in peace. And so ultimately, he was able to kind of calm down just by offering him a pair of headphones that he started watching his video on. So again, it was a very long process, maybe about a 20-minute continued conversation with this individual, that ended up resolving by me giving them a pair of free headphones from our library.
That's such a great illustration of you using all your techniques. All right, well, thank you so much. I think we could keep you here all day with questions, but thank you for your time and the presentation. And this has been recorded and will be sent out to you all tomorrow or later this week. So
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Have a great day.